I introduced motivational interviewing in an article in 1983. Amazes me that it's been growing all this time ever since, and called it motivational interviewing because it was about motivation, the client's motivation. And I like the word interviewing. Might have called it motivational conversation, except in a conversation, the two people have the same role usually. Whereas in an interview, the interviewer has a different role from the person who's being interviewed. The interviewer is trying to understand and learn from the other person. Is it the case that when you listen reflectively to people, they're more likely to change? Is it the case that when you evoke clients' own change talk, they're more likely to change, more so than if you're telling them what to do? Well, that's testable. And that's the kind of research we've been doing for 40 years to see what's the relationship between what you actually say and do in a session with a client and whether they change or not. My hope certainly was to develop a tool that would be useful to clinicians and would result in better client outcomes. And it does look like that's the case. It also seems to, and this is not something I particularly thought about ahead of time, it also seems to humanize care. In the addiction field, I didn't anticipate that it would go so far beyond addiction treatment into healthcare, into social work, into classroom education, into leadership, into preventive dentistry, into physical therapy, which things I hadn't really thought about. But people needing to make a change and being ambivalent about it is a pretty universal issue for in helping professions. And I think it's one reason that motivational interviewing has crossed cultures so readily. So now, not only is this being taught in practice, but it's being studied in clinical trials in Iran, in India, in Africa, in Indonesia, in mainland China, in cultures very different from our own. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is this seems to be a very good way to work with people who are really different from you because the client is the expert on who they are. And it's the client who makes the decisions about where they're going to be going, you know? And so cultural humility, I think, in a way lies at the heart of motivational interviewing, and I think is one reason why it has crossed cultures so well. What I hope people learn and leave with, if they come to my presentation in Seattle, is an understanding of this method of what it is. We know a lot now about how people do learn it. So I'll be talking about that too. What does it take to develop your skills in motivational interviewing? What do we know about who it works for and how it works and why it works?